This is Raceway Ministries Today. Thanks for joining us for Raceway Ministries Today. In just a moment, we'll be sharing with you the latest of what's going on in the world of Christian ministry and outreach through the National Fellowship of Raceway Ministries. I'd like to thank everybody for listening today to our podcast for the National Fellowship of Raceway Ministries. It's Raceway Ministries Today. My name is Roger Marsh, and I'm the director of the National Fellowship of Raceway Ministries. Raceway Ministries Today is our podcast platform, and hopefully you'll be able to find lots of information about Raceway Ministries and racers and people who are involved in Raceway Ministries work across the nation through our organization. But if you need more information about the National Fellowship of Raceway Ministries, you can go to our website. It's racewayministries.org, or you can follow us on Facebook, National Fellowship of Raceway Ministries, and then of course you can go to our YouTube channel by that same name. Today it is our pleasure to be able to have on the podcast Allen Huffman. Allen is the director of NCN Ministries, and we're going to talk a lot about that today. He lives and operates his race team and ministry out of Hickory, North Carolina. Allen is driver of the number 51 late model truck in the NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Series, and he also has driven some limited late models. His home track is Hickory Motor Speedway, and he's won the track championship twice there in recent years, 2018 and 2019, and I'm convinced he probably would have won it in 2020 had they been able to have a full season. And Allen may correct me, maybe he did, or maybe they did have a full season, I don't know. Allen has also been an active participant with the National Fellowship of Raceway Ministries for over a decade, and it's always been a pleasure to meet and greet him and come across him at our annual meetings and other occasions as well. Allen, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast. How are things out in your neck of the woods?
Thank you so much, Roger, for having us and having me on the podcast. Definitely been following that, obviously, as we have been a longtime partner of Raceway Ministries, and just love everything that just the entire group bring to the platform.
Well, you know, I can recall a few years ago, I believe it was in Daytona, where I first met you at one of our annual meetings there, and you pulled up and unloaded one of your limited late model cars that you guys were working on with you, and unloaded that thing and began to talk about everything that you had going on with NCN Ministries. And I got pretty excited to know that we have a racer out there that is just as excited about ministry as he is racing. So, man, we appreciate you an awful lot. Things have come a long way since that time that I met you there. I believe it was 2010 over there in Daytona, and God's done a lot in your life, and we're anxious to learn about it. So thanks for getting on the horn with us here today. How long actually have you been at it? You know, how'd you get into racing, and how long ago did that happen? How did it all get started?
Oh, wow. I've been involved in racing in some capacity for the last 30 years.
Really? Wow.
Yes. It all started one Saturday night. Me and my family had went to, there was this local restaurant we always went to on Saturday night, and it was called Fat Boy Seafood.
Okay.
And it was an all-you-could-eat barbecue and seafood buffet.
Wow, sounds good.
It was amazing food. It just so happened that restaurant was right across from the infamous Hickory Motor Speedway.
Oh, what a coincidence.
Yeah, so one night we went too late, and I heard the noise, and I was like 5 years old at the time, and asked my parents, well, what's all that racket? What's all that noise?
Yeah.
And so they explained it to me, and obviously I wanted to see it. So we ended up at the racetrack that night.
Oh.
First time there, and Robert Huffman and Max Prestwood, no relation, but Robert Huffman and Max Prestwood was beating the doors off of each other, to win the race. And
yeah.
Robert ended up winning, and I was hooked. I knew from that point I wanted to race, and spent the next 7 years. That's all I talked about was wanting to race. And,
wow, and that was only 5 years old.
Yes, sir. So we quickly began Friday night, Saturday night. Every week we were sitting at a racetrack and just watching, enjoying, and being a part of the fan experience of being at the track.
Yeah.
And then when I was 12, that Christmas, my parents actually bought me a go-kart, and obviously I wasn't going to be content just riding it around the house. My dad had a friend that actually owned a go-kart track, and we started going there and racing. And I was out horsepowered, out everything. My go-kart wasn't what everybody else had, but I was racing and having fun. So so we kind of did that from the time I was 12 till I was about 15, 16, and learned real quick that what it was going to cost to compete in go-karts. I could go buy a mini stock, like a little Ford Mustang, something like that, and actually go race stock cars. Yeah. So it kind of worked from there, from the time I was 16 till I was 21 years old, trying to put the money together to buy my first car. And, my parents, they always supported my dream and my vision, but didn't have a lot of money to invest in it. So they told me, if you want to race, you're going to have to figure it out. And so that's kind of what I did. So
wow, you spent a great amount of time then in go-karting, then gradually moved up to the stock car scene. That's over 10 years of working at it and coming to realization of what racing is all about and how it works. That's kind of a long haul.
It was. And, I tried to talk with people that, was in the sport and tried to learn as much as I could. But for the most part, really, and even when we began our stock car racing, it was me and my brother. And neither one of us had raced before. Nobody in our family had raced. So we really just, we were just figuring it out on our own. And, God definitely put some cool people in our paths as we've been on this journey. But really, in the beginning, it was me and my brother just trying to figure it out.
Wow. Well, there's a great lesson there. I think a lesson in patience, as you discover what God has equipped you to do in life. Sometimes it takes a long road to discover along the way all the details and to put people in your pathway that may be of influence later on. So you never know what God has around the next corner, and you just have to stick with it and persevere, which obviously you did. Now, once you got into the stock car scene, how did things develop from there?
Great question. So really from there, I bought my first mini stock back in 2000 and showed up at the racetrack the first night, and it was horrible.
Oh no!
I didn't know that I was supposed to be at the track at 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
I showed up at like 6:30. So by then we'd missed all practice. We missed qualifying.
Oh my.
Didn't know that was a part of it, but hey, it took us 30 minutes to figure out how to get the car off the trailer because we loaded it at the shop where I had a healed. And I had borrowed a friend of mine's dump truck and bulldozer trailer to go to the track with.
Okay, all right.
It wasn't until I got to the racetrack that I realized that the race car set 4 inches off the ground, and the trailer that we had loaded it on set about 2 foot off the ground.
Oh my goodness!
So I was trying to figure out how to get it out.
Yeah, how did you work that out?
We kept circling the parking lot. Finally found a hill that I could back up to roll the car off of.
Oh my.
In that first race, man, we were getting lapped about every 2 laps. It was horrible, and I look at it and I'm like, man, how embarrassing. But it was the beginning. I was racing.
Oh, yeah.
And at the time, that's all I cared about. So from there, in 2005, we actually bought a Pro Mini, which is kind of like a mini late model. For those that might be listening.
Right.
So it's a mini late model, but it's got a 4-cylinder engine in it. We actually ended up finishing second in the championship.
Wow.
To a driver that many people listening probably have heard of by the name of Matt DiBenedetto.
Oh,
that was his first year at Hickory. So,
wow.
Then 2006, we competed. But the end of 2006, God had been working on me for a while. But I wasn't really interested in listening. I was pursuing my dream of racing. I wanted to be the next cup driver, and that was all that was on my mind.
Right.
But end of 2006, God got my attention and made me realize that basically racing had become my little G God.
Mm-hmm.
That racing was more important to me at that point than he was.
Right.
So in the end of 2006, I sold everything, went back to school to go into the ministry. And it was interesting. I sold everything thinking that I was totally done with racing. But from 2006 to 2011, when you and I met, God still opened a door at least once every year for me to be able to compete compete in something.
Ah, okay.
So it was interesting how that kind of worked out. Then 2011, we got the limited late model and began working with it and kind of rebuilding our team. And there's a long story to that. I won't bore you with the details of that in this podcast, but basically a guy gave us a car and said, I know nothing about racing, but I know your passion to be able to use racing and ministry together. I've got a car. The car is yours. Go share Jesus. And so that's what we started doing. So we did that in 2011, won Rookie of the Year in 2012, but just really was never able to make that car work and, do what we were wanting to do.
Right.
2015, we ended up with a late model super truck. First time out in the truck, we actually finished third in the truck and started moving forward from there. So now, 6 years later, we're sitting here we've won Rookie of the Year in the trucks. We've won 2 track championships, multiple wins, various other awards over the last several years. So it's been an amazing ride.
It has been, man. What a journey that has been. I just keep going back to the thought that God had something in his mind that he knew he wanted you to do even back at age 5. And as you developed along the way, you began to realize certain things. I find it very fascinating that at one point you got rid of all of your racing stuff, practically turned your back on the sport to pursue ministry. And then God kept these little things coming along that seemed to be reminders to you that, I've still got something for you in the world of racing, and maybe I want to put those two things together. I find it fascinating because it almost seems as though when racing was your God with a little g, God saw fit to eliminate all of that from your life and just kind of clean the slate and prepare for something totally new. And once you got into something totally new, he began to open up great, great doors of opportunity for you, not only in racing, but in ministry as well. What a fascinating story. Man, thank you for sharing all that, Allen. I think those are great insights for anybody that might be trying to discern God's will in terms of racing and in terms of ministry as well. Now, that begs the question, though, what are your goals and what are your aspirations as a racer? What do you have in mind there?
Ever since I was little, my dream, my vision was always to be able to make it to one of the top 3 series.
Yeah, sure.
And, obviously in 06, I thought that was all done and over. And would have never dreamed we would even have any of the success that we've been able to have the last few years.
Right.
But, moving forward, and in fact, this week, we've been working pretty heavily on putting things together to be able to make our debut in the NASCAR Late Model Series.
Oh, awesome.
So our goal, hopefully by the end of 2021, is to have at least competed in 2 late model races and then basically use that as a platform to be able to move into either the ARCA or Camping World Truck.
Oh,
now,
wow.
Ultimately, my goal has been for a while to be able to make at least one start in the Camping World Truck Series.
Sure.
I've spoke with the powers that be, and at the current time, they wanted us to either make a couple late model starts or to make a start in an ARCA race.
Yeah, sure.
I've been approved for the ARCA series for half mile and under tracks.
Oh, good.
Obviously, that takes money.
Sure.
So we're working to try to get the late model done so we can be able to get at least 2 starts in that and then go back and talk with them and say, okay, will this approve us to be able to make a Camping World Truck start? Or do we still need to go the ARCA route first?
Sure.
And really, one thing I want to make sure is clear is that through that, it's not that I want to be the next greatest, Brett Moffitt or Jordan Anderson or whomever. Yeah. I really, my heart, my vision, now 10 years ago or 15 years ago, yes, that was the case. Today, it's really, I want to be able to do that and see that happen just because of the platform and the doors of opportunity to do more ministry.
Sure. Absolutely.
To be able to have that validity as a competitor and to be able to use that as an opportunity to open doors for ministry.
Well, I tell you, Allen, I really admire you for sticking with the vision that God has given to you and having lofty goals and aspirations. There certainly is nothing wrong with that. And our prayer certainly will be that God will open the doors for you to accomplish all of those things so that He can be glorified and you have a platform for the ministry. We are visiting here with Allen Huffman. Allen is a driver in the NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Series, drives a late model truck, and we are talking to Allen not only about his experiences and his championships at Hickory Motor Speedway over in North Carolina, but also visiting with him about NCN Ministries and God's call upon his life to share Jesus in the world of motorsports. Allen, based on what you have just shared with us, tell us a little bit about NCN Ministries. You've already kind of talked to us a little bit about how God extended a call to you to be involved in ministry, and obviously you're pursuing that. What is the mission of NCN Ministries? And just out of curiosity, what does NCN stand for? Maybe you can clarify that for me and then talk about the mission for NCN Ministries.
And it's funny, I've gotten a lot of questions about that. And they're like, is that like North Carolina something? I'm
yeah,
like, no.
That's kind of what I thought too. You know, the NC, North Carolina, that makes sense.
Right. So actually, NCN Ministries stands for New Creation Nation.
Oh, cool.
Based off of 2 Corinthians 5:17, where it talks about that through Christ, we're a new creation. You know, as we were founding NCN Ministries back in 2007, we started off as Youth on Fire Ministries.
Okay.
It was all began out of my 7th grade Sunday school class at the church I was at the time, but it didn't really fit with what we were kind of trying to do and what our goal was.
Okay.
As I reflected on what God had brought me through and where I was, you know, it really came down to what does God want to do with us? He wants to make a new creation out of us.
Yeah.
And so that 2 Corinthians 5:17 kept jumping out, and that is where NCN came from.
Okay, good.
So it came from that new creation.
Wow, awesome.
And simply put, our vision or our mission is to see God transform a nation of new creation believers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we want to see lives change. We want to see eternity changed for people. And we have a primary focus of working with students, but our heart is simply to share the gospel through any event or opportunity possible, whether it's students or adults, you know, from 9 to 99, or, you know, just whatever opportunity that God will open. You know, really kind of the driving concept behind it. And I heard this about 10 years ago, was that if Christ was to come back today, that 28 million students would be lost without hope.
Wow.
And that statistic just shook me to the core.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you know, I know Billy Graham mentioned numerous times that he estimated that as much as 90% of the church may be lost in just going through the motions. And we really wanted to put something together that would be a part of the change to see lives radically transformed with the gospel and to see the trajectory of their eternity changed.
Oh, absolutely. Wow. God's put a great vision in your heart, Allen, and wow, I'm just excited about your response to it and the depth of commitment that you have to fulfill that vision. You know, those statistics that you just shared with us should shake every one of us to the core.
Amen.
And help us to be alert to any opportunity that we have with any age group to be able to go and share the good news about Jesus. Now, you just mentioned something, events and opportunities to share. Whenever you do ministry away from the racetrack, is this at churches? Is this at convention centers? Or what do you have in mind? Where have you been? Where is it that you want to go and make NCN Ministries available to people?
Over the last 14 years, we've done various different things, whether it's, you know, ministry events at the racetrack or churches at youth camps. You know, I spent 3 summers actually traveling with a mission organization. And the privilege I had was basically being camp pastor.
Oh, cool.
For 10 weeks of the summer.
Yeah.
And it was just a phenomenal time. But we do, it doesn't matter about audience or size. We do anything from youth services to Sunday morning church services. In fact, I'm speaking at Pastor Greg Berkey's church this coming Sunday.
Oh, good. Good.
We do youth camps, rallies, revivals, evangelistic events. We can do discipleship training, men's event, really just whatever God opens the door for.
Wow, that's awesome. Now, you're the primary speaker for NCN Ministries. I've seen pictures on your website and on your Facebook page of you standing up in front of groups speaking. So is that the primary thing that you do, go and preach, just simply share God's word, share your testimony? I'm sure all those things have an effect and an impact upon those who listen. Do you have others who are involved in the ministry other than a support team that travels with you and goes with you?
I do, and definitely could not do it without all of those guys and ladies.
Yeah.
It's interesting how God has put this team together. We have those on our team that, they're more there for the racing side and helping to make sure that all the logistics of that side is good.
Yeah.
But then God has brought the people that they're more focused on the ministry side, and they want to see God move in big ways. And
awesome.
Really kind of my co-founder, Patrick Bowman, he's been with us since 2015. And he's just a phenomenal young man. I've known him for a long time, and I've actually known him since before he was a Christian, and I got to kind of be a part of that journey. And now on the ministry side, he's basically my right-hand guy. So he'll share his testimony and share messages and stuff. And in fact, during COVID, I actually started our own NCN podcast that was hosted by him and I. So.
Oh, cool. Well, speaking of that, what kind of platforms can you offer to people to find out more? Share with us your website, your Facebook page. How do people find their way to that? And the podcasts. How do people find their way to those things?
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is ncnministries.com.
Okay.
On Facebook, you can find us at NCN Ministries Integrity Motorsports. We do have two different Facebook pages. The NCN Ministry Integrity Motorsports is the one that we primarily update.
Okay.
They can also email me at Allen, it's ALLEN, at ncnministries.com. As far as our podcast, we've taken a little bit of a break on it currently.
Okay.
But we've primarily been just sharing that through our Facebook and YouTube page.
All right, good.
As well, which our YouTube page is also just NCN Ministries.
Okay, very, very good. So anybody listening that would like to find out more information about NCN Ministries or offer donations, financial support, or other encouragement through prayers, contact Allen through those means. Now, Allen, I have to ask you this. You've shared quite a bit about how you minister at events, church camps, and other settings. What about at the racetrack? When you're out there with those other racers, what does NCN Ministry look like when you're out there competing?
That's that's probably the toughest part that we do.
I bet.
To try to be a competitor, all while keeping your testimony, your integrity, and all of that. Really, we're not there trying to shove the Bible down anybody's throat. We're just there to try to be a positive change and a positive influence all that we're around.
Yeah, sure.
Obviously, when things go south, I can't get out of the truck and ranting and raving and cussing and throwing stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I've got to handle things differently because that's what God's called us to do. But it's been interesting, just being available, whether it's during the autograph session, getting to pray with fans and talk with fans about our ministry, and just having the ministry name on the truck is huge because it opens doors to be able to talk about church stuff and God and all of that. But it's also been neat that when things go bad, our competitors and even the officials and those at the track, they know where to come if they need something.
Absolutely, yeah.
I was actually sitting up in the grandstands last year at one of the races, and there was a driver that they thought he was having a heart attack. And he actually asked the paramedics if they could come and find our team, and he wanted somebody to come pray with him. And there is no more humbling opportunity than to have a fellow competitor that's in a tough situation and ask you to come and pray.
Boy, you're right about that, yeah.
So it's just being available.
Well, we find that to be true across the board in Raceway Ministries work. Obviously when you're at a raceway, whether it's involved with the Raceway Ministry team, ministering to the fans, or even as a racer out there competing against your fellow sportsmen, you can't be overly aggressive. We call it soft evangelism. A lot of it is simply modeling the Christian life, being available, taking opportunities that God brings your way to be able to get into a conversation or have prayer with someone. Many times that's exactly what ministry looks like. And, you can't always stand up on a soapbox and beat everybody up with the Bible when you're out there at a secular entertainment atmosphere. So modeling Christian behavior as a driver can be huge in terms of influencing other people. And so I think you've hit the nail right on the head with how to do that best out there at the raceway. And it is a very humbling experience when you have one of your fellow competitors come up and want to be on the receiving end of ministry and come and request that from you. What an opportunity and what a great way to serve the Lord. Now, if there would be someone out there listening today that says, God has really touched my heart about NCN Ministries, just listening to the things that Allen has shared, I would like to support financially. Or I would like to support in some way. What are the greatest needs that you have with NCN Ministries that someone might want to send specific support for some particular item or for the ministry in general? What are your greatest needs with NCN Ministries?
Honestly, the greatest need currently really isn't even financial. It's just getting the word out about who we are and what we can offer.
Okay.
Being able to get events lined up and to get those opportunities to be able to share the gospel. Now, one thing that we have done, we hosted a 2-night youth revival, and it was just one that we hosted ourselves, and we're wanting to do more of those. So obviously they do cost money. When we do events, we never come in with a budget and say, you have to pay this or we're not going to come.
Right.
For 14 years, we've always operated just off of love offering.
Okay.
And, off of donations from various different people. And so what we are wanting to do is to try, now that we're kind of past the whole COVID thing, is to start getting some of those events relaunched.
Okay.
So, there is a need there financially to be able to do that. And all of the money that comes in and that is donated to the ministry, 100% stays on the ministry side. We have partners that help us on the racing side. And, if someone wants to donate to the racing side, I'm not going to turn it down. But I do want to make it clear that, I'm very careful that money that is donated from ministry, it goes to ministry, to events. Maybe it's to a church that they want to do an event, but they can't afford to have us come. So, sure. We trust that God's going to provide. We also do a lot of stuff within the community. We're actually working on a thing. We want to put together a dinner to feed our local police department.
Oh, yeah.
And just to thank them for their service and to be able to minister that way.
Okay, great. Well, I appreciate your distinction between donations that are made for ministry versus investments into your racing team. I've noticed on your website a long list of sponsors that you have put together for the racing side of the team, and to keep those two things separate, I think, is very, very commendable. I would say if anybody out there is listening today and they might be interested in sponsorship for the racing team, check out Allen's contact sources and get on board with him and support the racing, because obviously his success in racing is going to create an improved platform for him to be able to launch the ministry and use that as a launching pad to go out and tell other people about the Lord. But if anybody out there might be interested in supporting the ministry side of it, again, contact Allen through the information that he has provided here today and get on board. And maybe he's got a church out there that would love to have him come but just can't pay for the expenses to have him there, and it would be a great way to offer some sponsorship and donations to help that event happen. Well, now, Allen, moving forward through the rest of 2021 and 2022, you shared a little bit about some of your aspirations on the racing side, and you've indicated that you would like to expand your exposure of NCN Ministries moving out of the pandemic. Any other plans for the remainder of this year and then 2022?
Really the big focus is trying to get things in place to move towards that Camper World Truck debut, as well as just getting events relaunched. We had a lot of momentum, and then COVID happened. So, we had, I think it was about 18 different events that got canceled last year. So just trying to get those back rocking and going. And, one thing I did want to mention is we believe in Raceway Ministries. Obviously, we've been with Raceway Ministries for a long time.
Sure.
But we're here to help with our Raceway Ministries teams as well.
Okay, good. What does that look like if a Raceway Ministry team is set up and doing something at Atlanta Motor Speedway or Nashville Super Speedway? What kind of things might you be able to do to enhance what they're doing there at those venues?
Sure. And depending on location and just some of the logistics, we do have the opportunity to make, one of our race vehicles available.
Good.
We would need to work through some of that, obviously, but, we can do that. Obviously, I would love an opportunity to come and maybe even share chapel service, whether it's a testimony or a message or whatever.
Yeah, sure.
If any Raceway Ministries teams are working with your church and trying to encourage your church or help them to understand the importance of what you do, I would love to be able to come as a driver and be able to share what your impact does, not just for drivers, but for fans, and just the impact that you're making. really, we just want to be able to come alongside of our fellow Raceway Ministry teams and be a support.
Yeah.
I also do some audio and video stuff. I've got some different video editing software and all of that. Whatever I can do, I'm willing to listen and open ideas.
Wow, that is tremendous. And one of the things that immediately comes to my mind, Allen, would be speaking at a church to encourage a church to get on board and support Raceway Ministries. I find that many of our groups, they're out there functioning independently and doing everything they can to try to raise funding and get support. And in many cases, they have a hard time getting a local church to understand the opportunity and how vast the opportunity is for doing ministry out there at the raceways. And for someone like you, especially from a driver's perspective, to come out there and share about how racing can be used as a great opportunity to share the gospel, I think that'd be a great asset to some of the Raceway Ministry teams that are out there. So that's awesome. Well, Allen, I can't thank you enough for opening up your heart and just sharing today about how God has been at work in your life to extend a calling to you to do ministry in the unique setting of motorsports, and just sharing about all the details that NCN Ministry has going on, the vision that you have for racing. Pretty exciting stuff. I really appreciate you being on the podcast today, Allen.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me, and thanks for giving me an opportunity to just be able to share about what God's doing both on our racing side and ministry side, and thank you for what you do.
Well, it's my pleasure. I love doing what I do, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be involved in Raceway Ministries and get to know guys like you and try to promote what God has going on in the lives of people like you and all the Raceway Ministry teams that are out there. Any final word before we go?
The only other thing I will say is I just thank God for the opportunity to be here. Obviously, we thank our sponsors and partners that make the racing side happen. My team, I am nothing without my team. They keep me straight, keep me focused on where we need to be, and I just really want to thank them and my family, and just thankful to have this opportunity.
Man, you sound like you're in victory lane somewhere, thanking your team and thanking your family and giving praise to God and all that. And my prayer is that you're going to be in victory lane repeatedly through the years to be able to share that kind of testimony with others. And if you do that, I think God's going to open up the opportunities for you. Allen, thank you so much. We've been visiting with Allen Huffman. Allen Huffman is from North Carolina, drives the number 51 late model truck in the NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Series, also has some experience with limited late models, track champion out there at Hickory Motor Speedway in 2018-2019, actively involved in racing and has a heart for ministry, and also serves as director for NCN Ministries. Go and check them out at their website, on their Facebook page, and their YouTube channel and everything else, and get to know Allen and pray for him, pray for their team as they go out and compete in the race car, pray for them as they go out and do ministry at churches and church camps and Raceway Ministry locations and all kinds of other things. So, Allen, thank you so much for being with us today. And to all of our listeners, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us for this podcast. And if you need more information about the National Fellowship of Raceway Ministries, check us out at our website, racewayministries.org, or you can go to our Facebook page, National Fellowship of Raceway Ministries, and our YouTube channel by the same name. So until our next podcast, as we all move along through the road course of life, we look forward to seeing you in victory lane. See you next time. We hope you'll tune in next time as we continue to explore Christian ministry and outreach in motorsports through the National Fellowship of Raceway Ministries. If you'd like to learn more about the National Fellowship of Raceway Ministries, visit our website at racewayministries.org. Follow us on Facebook under the name National Fellowship of Raceway Ministries. Check out our podcast and videos found on our National Fellowship of Raceway Ministries YouTube channel. Meanwhile, thanks for joining us for this presentation of Raceway Ministries Today.